Hello, Mackenzie. How the devil are you, sir?
Very good, Terry. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. It's Friday, end of the week. It's all good. Looking
Yeah,
forward to
no,
a nice
absolutely.
weekend. Local football's back on as well, which is good.
Yeah, maybe for you. We're playing Manchester City, so
I
maybe
know,
not for us.
I know. We've got Arsenal, haven't we? Both tough games.
Yeah, Arsenal are on the rise again, aren't they? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
hit
it
and
won't
miss,
be
aren't they?
easy.
Really? Well,
Yeah,
City,
but
you're up against 50 million pound players, every one of them.
yeah, yeah. The only good thing is they're not as ruthless as Liverpool in front of goals, so you never know. Might
True.
keep it in single figures. We
Yeah.
might get a corner.
Before we start talking about your writing, tell me a bit about yourself. I know where you're from, but let's tell us what your hobbies are, maybe what you do for a job, and
Yeah,
what else.
no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm born in Everton many years ago, but I've lived most of my adult life in St Helens. So
Oh,
lived in Rainford and Rainhill.
yeah,
Also lived in Aintree for a while when I was a kid.
yeah,
So I moved around a bit, but currently live in Rainhill.
yeah.
Um, I have a sort of an interest in an insurance broker slash franchisee, so I do a bit of commercial insurance broking.
Yeah.
Good thing about it is I'm not 9 to 5, so I can fit it in with other things I need to do, like this sort of thing today.
Yeah, yeah. How about your writing? Is it how much of your time's involved with writing? Has it been a while since you last published? I'm looking it through you on your website now. Excellent film noir, black and white style. It's superb.
Yeah.
But what?
The last book I published was book 4 in the Prince of the City series.
Okay.
Return of the Feline, number
Yeah.
4. Classic femme fatale in that particular one.
Yeah.
I'm sort of, I've got number 5. You see, the idea originally was, I'd call them probably novellas. They're not, they're about 60,000 words.
About 140 pages, aren't they, roughly?
Yeah, roughly. Then the idea was to I had a big story to tell, but I wanted to do it on a broad canvas. So it was to do these 5 smallish books, but have one overarching story. So the overarching story in book 5 comes to a conclusion.
Okay.
And that sort of concludes 1940 as well.
Okay.
So the idea is there'll be a series of books in each year during the war, if I ever get around to doing them all.
Yeah. There's a lot of distractions, isn't there? It's the internet, Twitter, Facebook. You can spend your whole life on that alone, as well as your own website.
Well, absolutely. But I've got some people who help me as well. My daughter's an editor as well, believe it or not.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that's useful. But yeah, I kind of that's the next book that'll come out. But I'm always working on something, Terry. I don't know about yourself, but I'm working on a book of short stories at the moment because I like to sort of experiment with the shorter version of a story. That's kind of how I cut my teeth really as well. I was very interested in writing from an early age and started writing some absolutely awful short stories when I look back on them now.
You think they're brilliant at the time, don't you? You think you're Hemingway. You're going to get published and someone's going to knock at the door with £1 million to buy your tales.
Exactly. Yeah, but as we both know, that doesn't quite work out that way. No, but yeah, so I wrote a book of short stories, 1 very old story and 9 new ones, and I called it 10 Little Thrills. About 2017, I think they were published.
Yeah.
So I'm following this up. Partly, I've got 2 daughters, and partly because I've kind of I wanted it when I was discussing fiction with them and sort of thrillers, really, they were saying that in their opinion anyway, they didn't think women were very well represented in fiction, particularly crime fiction. So I sort of have to think that got my mind working. So I've come up with 10 very different stories, and I'm going to call it 10 Little Kills, but all the central characters are females. I've tried to make all my women, even though this Prince of the City series, which I know we'll come to, because I was that's something that I'll explain what my thinking is behind it, but I'll go back again to where I started and what I've written before all of that. But effectively what I've tried to do, again, probably influenced by my daughters, is I've tried to make the women a bit stronger than perhaps they might have been in fiction at the time.
Yeah.
You know, if you read something like Chandler
Yeah.
or Hammett,
Yeah.
the women, apart from your femme fatale figure, they tended to be sort of lost souls, sort of pliable characters with not much weight.
Yeah.
So I've made a couple of strong characters. There's in the Prince of the City series, which I'll come back to, there's a couple of strong female characters which I'll talk about. But just to go back to how I started. So I started with short stories. I was always quite interested in art. I quite like art. I like drawing. Never really learned to paint, but something I probably would have liked to have done. But I decided I had this battle going on. It was a drawing or was it writing? And the writing won in the end, because I felt as though the way I work, I've got more control over almost everything when you're writing.
Yeah.
Whereas my drawings were probably copies of things.
Yeah.
They lacked originality. That's the way I saw it. So I pursued that, and then probably 15 years ago, wrote a book intending to be for my daughters when they were kids. And I ended up publishing it, the Book of Souls, and it was kind of like, again, probably it sounds as though I'm banging on about women all the time. There's a central character in this. It's literally a children's book. It's like a Harry Potter for girls, if you like. So it's a supernatural sort of tale.
The Book of Souls, was that?
It's called the Book of Souls, and that was the first one I published, and then I kind of moved to a couple of thrillers, which one of them was probably called, my colour is supernatural thriller called The Shifting. And that's sort of set in London. And a bit like you, I'm not quite sure where you write, but
Liverpool,
I know
Liverpool as a
well,
character.
I'm going to say I know I'm the same. I know right in Liverpool almost entirely, because I set The Shifting in London because it seemed the right place for it to be.
Okay.
And although I knew it through work and things over the years, I'm happier writing about Liverpool and Liverpool characters.
It's what you know, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
The mannerisms, the noisances, the way people speak, the geographic locations. Like I'm reading The Prince of the City of Cat's Whiskers now, and he's on a journey from the docks through the Dingle. He's going to Chilwell. That's where I used to live. So I know exactly where that character is. So that's bringing more to me.
Yeah, well, somebody actually messaged me today and said they were reading book 3 at the moment, and they're looking forward to book 4. And that's exactly what she said. Now, I'm in a discussion at the moment with a publishing agent over another work of mine, which I'll tell you a little bit about. It might not go anywhere. You know how these things are.
Yeah. It take forever as well, don't they?
Well, that's the thing. So I've just ploughed on with doing my own thing at the moment. But I showed them the Prince of the City series, but I kind of knew what they said, and they kind of the lady who read it said, or she didn't really read it. She scanned it. She said it reads a bit like the opening reads a little bit like a travelogue. Now I think that's nonsense.
That's rubbish. Absolutely rubbish.
I accept that. Look. The Prince of the City series, I always knew was not a genre that's kind of in vogue at the moment, but it's a genre I love. So it's kind of like a labor of love. So how it got, I wrote another book called Lost Boys. Again, not completely happy with it. Third book, and this was set in Liverpool this time in the 70s, and it's about boys. It's called Lost Boys, and it's about boys who go missing, and it's about there's an alcoholic detective who. He's trying, a bit of a trope really. He knows that it's all linked, but in the 70s, I know from police, I knew at the time, the police services didn't link all the crimes together then. So he has to go through files, and he eventually realizes there's sort of a pattern of boys going missing over the years, and his son is one of them. And that's what it's about. And it's imperfect, but I've written about the character again in this book of short stories I wrote. So they were the first 3 I attempted. Now, the 4th book's pretty important, both for the Prince of the City series, but also because of the reason I write. Now, the reason I think I write these aren't the reason. This is not where I get my ideas from. But when I was a kid, I always remember stories around the dinner table. And I think all writers, I'm sure you're the same, Terry, we're like sponges. We don't realize we take stuff in that we regurgitate in different ways. And to be honest, this is quite an obvious regurgitation, because when I decided I could write, I thought, why haven't I ever written a book about my grandfather? My grandfather and my grandmother had on my mother's side, and he was Angus Mackenzie Brown. They had quite up until the end of the Second World War. They had what I thought was quite an amazing life. Some of the things that happened in their lives, and I wrote a book based on their lives, but involved a heck of a lot of research, family tree, and also the Second World War. And I kind of, when I wrote it, and although I think it's a little bit melodramatic, the book, again, not perfect, but I was pleased I did it. It was almost like something that I felt I owed the family.
Yeah,
so
homage.
It's that like that.
Yeah.
But that was where I kind of got the idea for the Prince of the City, because I thought I can actually write in the 40s now. I kind of understand that period a bit better. And that's where that came from. And then from then on, I after that, I've just written, other than this book of short stories I alluded to, I've just written books about Prince of the City. And the reason he's a black character, I mean, I know that's a bit unusual.
It is.
I wanted to link it to the slave trade. And the other thing you see I also wanted him to be, because you'll know yourself, Terry, in that sort of fiction, the central character is all this, he's mired in all this sort of crime.
Yeah, the spibs up near the black market.
It's all going around on him. And he's the ultimate underdog, but he always tries to do the right thing, that kind of character. So that was what I was going for. But I thought giving him a black face as well meant A, he was linked to the city, and B, it makes him even more of an underdog. Because I try to allude to that, as you know.
Well, I've got him
the first one.
I'm at a point now where I think he's in the dingle, and he says to himself, "I'm in a white area, and people are looking at me, and he's standing out a little bit."
Yeah.
No, just before I forget, we're going back to like the 1940s. I've got similar background. My grandparents, they came from like the Eldon Grove area, town centre, and I remember tenements there. One corner block, it had bullet holes in from German warplanes swooping down low into the city, and you could put your finger into the bullet hole that was left there behind. Real evidence of how the war impacted the city, and how Liverpool was the main target.
No, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't quite realised how much of the war I was going to weave into the story. It's set during then, obviously. But it's almost, you've heard this before, haven't you? Writers have said it's almost taken on a life of its own, that part. Where the war kind of is almost like, although it's set, detective stories tend not to concern themselves with the war generally. But because this character is enmeshed in it, and you'll see more of this if you read, anybody who reads any of the other books as it develops. Because I think the first book is an okay start. I was pleased with it.
I'm enjoying it.
I think 2, 3, and 4. I can't say for sure about 5 yet, but 2, 3, and 4 definitely they develop the characters better. Maybe it's again because I've developed them, and you kind of grow with them.
You see that in television series, don't you? Usually, season 1, it's okay, it's getting the characters established. By season 2 and 3, the guys behind the scenes who are writing the characters, they're more familiar with it, and it's just always a massive improvement. It's easy to see. Okay, can I ask? Were you? You mentioned agency and things. Are you self-published? Have you gone down?
I've done a bit of both over the years. Small publishing houses and also, but this Prince of the City series is self-published because
create space.
I've kind of almost just said to myself, no one's going to want this. No one's going to be interested in it. So I'm just going to do this. And the good thing is about it is, look, I think we all need somebody to look at our works and say, no, that doesn't work. I mean, give you an example in the first Prince of the City book, here's an example of having someone you trust to read your books, because this is quite a simple, you'll recognize this when I tell you, but I'd written a scene where you may not have got to this point yet, but him and Everton Cosgrove go over onto the Wirral, and they're chasing someone. They find where this person is. Yeah. Now, I'd written this, and they're actually on waste ground, I think. Yeah. Not quite sure exactly where they are. It's somewhere on the Wirral, on the coast, and they're looking at this house. And the way I'd written it, I'd written it so that they could see more than they would have been able to from that angle. The angle they were standing at. And somebody who'd read it went, that is just nonsense. How would they be? And that's the kind, you need that sort of feedback. You need to say
fresh eyes on it.
That's rubbish, or you need to change that because it's not right. And I've got a few people who I trust who will say to me, I like this, this, and this, but you need to change this, this, and this, in my opinion. So you need that. Obviously, you need a good editor and a proofreader as well. Of course, but obviously, they're not as polished. I know that as published books.
I don't know. I see now. I think I haven't written my own. I'm picking up, best-selling authors' novels, and I'm finding a typo, every other page, and it really annoys me.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's because I've written myself and I've edited the hell out of things. It really glares at me. It jumps out at me and says, this is poor.
Yeah.
Did you have beta readers? Did you bother things like that? Just send it out, for fresh eyes to look at it before you actually hit that publish button?
I do. Yeah. I have a couple of people I've alluded to there I trust. So I give it to them first. One is probably my closest friend, but he is also one of my biggest critics at times. But you need that. You need honesty. It's pointless having somebody blowing smoke up your backside and saying, oh, you're just wonderful.
Wasting time, isn't it?
Well, it is a waste of time. I once heard an interview with Alistair Campbell, the old Labour spin doctor, and he writes fiction. And his first book he'd written, somebody criticised it. And apparently, when he was interviewed, his proofreader, he was with a proper publisher, recommended all these changes to the book. Apparently, he was using adverbs everywhere, and he was kind of I can't remember the phraseology they used, but
you have to kill your darlings.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't do it basically. So he because of who he is, he got them to publish it as it is, and it got absolutely slated by the critics for that reason. So there's an example. I mean, we're not at that level where we'll have critics after us, but at the end of the day, you've got to listen to people. And I think you've got to keep learning as well. I mean, I feel as though my style's slightly different writing these because it has to be for the genre, but I've almost developed my own version of noir writing, really, because it's not quite like
it's not full on American, is it? Like it wasn't only the night that was dark.
No, well, exactly. I mean, I think that perhaps might have been in the first few drafts, if I'm honest with you. But I kind of tried to knock that out of it. He still says things that perhaps you wouldn't associate with the Scouser saying, I think.
I don't know why. I've got in my mind he's American. I know I'm only partly away into the story, but I keep thinking this guy's American. The film noir influences, I think, are still breaking.
Exactly. Well, I think as it develops, he's developed more into introducing British things, Liverpool things, more of that. I mean, I'm talking about obviously the air raids and stuff like that. Obviously, I don't think it interrupts the story because the idea behind the Prince of the City is it's fast paced. That was always my idea. Yeah, the story rattles along. That's what I'm after. And the idea is, the idea is to do that and almost leave you with a cliffhanger almost at the end of it, because there's only 10 chapters, as you know, but they're quite long chapters in each of the books. So I'm kind of thinking, when I get to 5, do I release an omnibus with 50 chapters in it? I don't know. I don't know whether that dilutes something. I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. That's what I do. I put them all together in one big, I don't know, hardback. Have you looked at hardback? Have you looked at you're in paperback and Kindle now. Have you looked at the hardback and the audio versions, maybe? You thought about that?
I have. The audio version, again, is one that you'd have to either pay somebody to read it, or you'd have to do it yourself. And I don't know.
There's another option,
Is that?
Yeah, I looked into it for about 6 months. There's two options. You can pay, as you say, you can pay someone, and you can get Stephen Fry to come and read it, narrate it. You pay him £1 million.
Yeah.
Or what you can do is, if you do it that way, if you pay someone, you get 40% royalties on whatever the sales are, and your average audio book sells for about £16. So, or what you can do is go onto the Amazon site and link with Audible, and you can ask for a narrator where you do a shared royalties with. What they'll do, they'll produce the audio for free. You don't pay anything up front, and they'll share 20%. You get 20% royalties. And that way you've got sort of if it's a bit of a celebrity who's doing the reading, you've got them self-promoting as well. They're going to help, to increase their sales.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's a good shout. I'll certainly look into that, because I was almost thinking about reading it myself, but again, would I do it justice? I doubt.
You need very expensive top of the range kit. It has to be, very professional level. You have to wear like a box on your head or something, talking, so you got no other interferences and things coming in. It's quite expensive, actually, I think.
Yeah. Well, I know my daughter, who's a film student at Liverpool, John Moore's, and she
has that equipment.
Yeah, well, she hasn't really. They'll have it there, but she's gone under. I've seen her going under somewhere to record something with blankets over, as you say, to sort of shut out the noise. So she's almost under a table with blankets all over her, and then she can get the sound right. Yeah. So there are ways to cheat it, but I agree with you. I think that would probably have been a bad idea. But so I didn't pursue that for now, but I'll certainly, thanks for that, Terry. I'll look into that.
What's your writing routine? Do you have I don't know, you come home from work, do you have a set time, or do you have a set idea of how many words you're going to do, or is it just whenever you feel like?
I write every week. I don't write every day necessarily, but I'm always thinking about whatever I'm working on. Like at the moment, I'm writing a short story, quite a long one. And I've got to be honest, it's based on a novel I read by, when I say based on it, it's a nod to that novel. It's nothing like it because it was set in America by a guy called Peter Straub, called Mystery. And it's almost, I've kind of, I like the feel that you got in that story. So it's a bit like an innocent who understands, who finds out that a relative of theirs, this is the idea really, is actually not what they think. And that's what my story is a bit like that. She discovers that her aunt was a spy during the Second World War and is actually in danger. So but it's told from her perspective, and as she uncovers it, and she actually doesn't realize that her aunt is there's a radio character who's actually a male, that her aunt was who this was based on. And that's where I am. I'm kind of think of it all the time, but I write once a week, one evening a week. I just go and do it. And I don't have, if I write a page, fine. I'm not one of these that ever sits there though at a typewriter or a keyboard and struggles. My view is, if you've got writer's block, you just write. I mean, if you call it whatever you like, I don't suffer from it. So I might just type a load of garbage. I might look at it the next day and go, ugh, and change it all. But I think there's some days you can actually put exactly what you're thinking down on the page. Other days it's harder. And I think some writers who suffer writer's block, let's call it that, I think they're striving for perfection on the first draft. I don't see it like that. I think the first draft is just your lump of clay. I love it when I've done the first draft, because I always think, right, thank God I've got that done. That's when my work starts, because you can then mold it into what you want it to be, I think.
I totally agree. I think I found a few times when I hadn't felt like writing, I don't know, maybe I've gone out, I've gone down the pub and had a couple of pints, I've come home and I've typed stuff up, and I've looked at it the next day. I thought, what the hell is that? But at least through the garbage that I've written there, there's some, the story's taken off in a different direction, or through different characters, moved in different ways that I hadn't planned.
Yeah.
That's what they said. Was it right when drunk and edit when sober?
That's Hemingway says that. I'd have no trouble if somebody said to me that's how they did it. I mean, I to be honest, I was interviewed on television and I quoted Hemingway. Yeah. And it was a bit tongue in cheek. I actually said, but that's not how I operate. I was kind of saying, basically, like I've just said to you now, and it's kind of, I think if you write, you get to a certain age and you write in a certain way, you can always learn, develop, improve, but you have to have your own routine. I would never say to anybody that you must have the same routine that I have when I write. For some people it wouldn't work. It work. What I do works for me. I mean, I say I write one day a week. If I'm really working on something that I want to get it finished, or I can't leave it alone, then I'll do it, at the weekend sometimes. But by and large, at the moment, I've got a great routine. I just do it once a week. And then if I'm ready to publish, there's a lot of work involved with these because I self-publish the Prince of the City ones. So I will have to do stuff through the week when they're ready. When I get them back from the proofreader and editors, there's still some work to do. But yeah, I think people, another question that other writers have asked me, what's the best advice you could give us? And the best advice I would say, and I've said this so many times, again, it's just one of the things I'm not making this up. This is actually my actual belief. If you start something, in my opinion, finish it. Even if when you've finished it, you never look at it again. But my view is work on one thing at a time. You might have other things in your mind, but get it done. And then decide then when you finish what you're doing with it.
Did you ever find yourself that you're struggling to end? Like, I mean, my novel, it went through like 26 edits. And even now, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you could do a change a little bit here and there. But you've got to get to a point, haven't you? Say enough. That's it. It's the end. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you're writing a novel, did you write with an outline, Terry? Or
did you? Yeah, bullet points, maybe 10 bullet points for each chapter. But I found,
did you have an ending? Or did you have an ending once you scoped it all out then, or not?
Yeah, I had everything, all bullets up. But having said the characters moved off by themselves. When you're writing half decent, when the characters come alive, they start moving about of their own volition in a way. You think you're a bit insane.
Yeah.
If you say that to anyone who's not a writer, they look at you and they move away.
Yeah, they move further down the bus or the train, don't they? No, you're absolutely right. I've discovered over the years as well, there's two things I've discovered about talking about writing. Is I always say to people, because some people, friends of mine, some will, some won't. Oh, this is Dave. He's a writer. He also writes whatever. Oh, okay. And then I'll say, look, before I start, don't get me on this subject if you're not interested in writing or hearing anything, because I'll become a bit of a bore. You won't shut me up. And so that's, I met a few friends of mine in Liverpool. Was it last summer when it was all opening up after COVID? And I got there. Now my mate brought his friends from Chesterfield. I met them in Liverpool, and he tipped them off that I was a writer because they were pretending they'd discovered me online, and I knew they hadn't. Yeah. But I just took it in good faith, and I said the same to them. I said, "Look, guys, yeah, I do, but let's not talk about it because you won't shut me up." Yeah. So, but I also take the view. The other thing I've learned over the years is just because someone's a reader, they might not necessarily like what I write, my genre, if you like. Yeah. So again, I'd sort of say if somebody is asking, I just say, "Oh, what books are you interested in?" And if they say thrillers, maybe detective stories, then I'll say, "Oh, right, okay." Then let's have a little conversation. So I kind of mindful of the fact that you've got to have the right audience.
Yeah, it's their choice whether you want to buy it or not. Yeah.
No, exactly, and that's the thing. But it's pointless pitching it to someone Not that I'd do a very good job anyway, but it's putting its pitch to somebody who likes romances. If they're not going to go anywhere near a thriller of any kind, I mean, to be honest, take my wife an example. She likes thrillers, but she doesn't really like my sort of stuff. It's not for everybody. She likes a sort of almost like, and this will sound derogatory to her, it's not. She almost likes a mindless thriller where she almost doesn't think. It's moving so fast that she hasn't got to think about it. Because I'll ask her afterwards, "Oh, what did you think of that book?" And tell me about it. And I don't say it, but if I said to her, "Tell me about it," a couple of weeks later, she wouldn't have to tell me anything about it. It's hard, isn't it? But that's how some readers are. You've got to respect that. Whereas I've read a few books that I would read over and over again. I have a few favorite books, and I can tell you all about them now because they've had more of a, perhaps they've had more of an effect on me than other books.
Quite heavily influence on your writing.
I don't know. Who knows? It's like this thing I was saying again. It's this sponge effect, isn't it? Because I mean, probably the writers I admire in detective fiction, I've mentioned them already. Chandler, Hammett. I read John D. MacDonald still. I've got all of his Travis McGee books, 21 of them, on the bookshelf behind us here. Ross MacDonald, who wrote books. What the heck's his name? Paul Newman played him in a couple of films, and they're actually the Coen brothers are going to make another one. But in Paul Newman, for some reason, they changed the name of the character in the Paul Newman series. It's called The Moving Target, and he was called. I'm trying to waffle while I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, no problem. Need someone to Google it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I can see the book here as well. But I read his again. He was a brilliant. Wrote in the 60s. He was a brilliant sort of detective fiction writer. And I was trying to understand why they changed his name, and it was to do with Newman had this thing where his character, when he made a film where the character had a name beginning with H, apparently. They were always successful, like Hood. Ombre. The other one about the pool, what was that called? The black and white one. The Hustler. When they began with H, so they changed the character. Now, if I'd have been Ross MacDonald, I don't know what I'd have done if he'd have come to me and said, "I actually don't want to call him Vic Prince. I want to call him Vic Hints or something." Just what would you have done? Would you have said, "Okay, Paul, it's your shout"?
Someone like Paul Newman, I'd probably have said, "Okay," or give him a middle name or something. But it was Fred Bloggs. Get lost. It's my book. Leave me alone. Mackenzie, I'm aware the time's running down. I think Zoom's going to kick me off in about 5 minutes. But I really appreciate your time. Can we chat again sometime?
No, absolutely. As you can tell, Terry, I talked the leg off an old table.
That's all. I think they're easy to chat to. I've got a million list of questions here I haven't even touched on. But we've got the time limit on Zoom, and I think my missus is looking at me as well. So we'll book another chat then in the near future. Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me know when it works for you. Yeah, and we'll do it again and get together. Yeah, that'll be really good. No, appreciate your time. And listen, good luck against the City on. Is it Saturday or Sunday you're playing? Sunday, 2 o'clock. I think we'll get a corner, Terry, for definite. Yeah. We're 5:30. I think 5:30. I think at Anfield. On the Sunday or Saturday. Saturday, Liverpool. Yeah. Saturday. Right. Yeah. Yeah, well, good luck with that. I think I fancy, although they're in good form, I fancy Liverpool for that. I do myself. I think West Ham were good value, I think, for beating us the other week because they're playing really well under Moisey. So they are. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that was always going to be tough at their place, wasn't it? Moyes has got them going well. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Well, good luck to both of us then over the weekend, and we'll keep in touch on Twitter as we have been doing. Brilliant. All right, look forward to it. Thanks for your time. Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Mackenzie. Take care. Mate. Thanks, Terry.